Alright, we are back with round 3. If you'd like to know what I changed about my deck since last week, I go over that at the beginning of round 1. But for now, I'm going to jump straight into my opponent's deck. This time we're up against Ponza. At its core, Ponza is really trying to destroy its opponent's lands with cards like Stone Rain or Molten Rain, or turn them into basic mountains with a playset of Blood Moons. Of course, these cards alone don't kill your opponent. It's using them to destroy your opponent's lands and ruin their mana base so that they're completely unable to cast their spells. Meanwhile, you're casting big threats that'll help you close out the game really quickly. So, on turn 1, you'd like to get to a fast start. To help you do this, you want to play either Utopia Sprawl, Arbor Elf, or Birds of Paradise, because all 3 of these cards could help you make 3 mana by turn 2. Now, the ideal turn 2 play, if you've got 3 mana, is a Blood Moon, but it wouldn't feel bad to play a Tireless Tracker or Goblin Rabblemaster instead. So Goblin Rabblemaster can get out of control pretty quickly. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 Goblin creature token with haste, and then whenever Goblin Rabblemaster attacks, it gets +1/+0 for each other attacking goblin until end of turn. So assuming it makes the only goblins in play, the first turn, 1 goblin token swings, 1 damage. The second turn with 2 goblins, +2/+0 on a 2/2, it swings for 6. Then it swings for 8, and by this time, your opponent's probably dead. Now, Tireless Tracker is right at home in this deck. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, investigate, make a clue, and then whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on Tireless Tracker. So with all the fetches and shocks in this mana base, you're likely to end up with a lot of +1/+1 counters and a lot of clues from your Tireless Tracker. And on a side note, all those clues are useful for Pia and Kieran Nalar as well, because she can also sacrifice clues as a part of her ability, as clues are artifacts. So her being able to sacrifice her own 2 Thopters is bad enough, but now with potentially 4 or 5 artifacts from having multiple clues, she can really get out of control. And each of these 3 drops you could potentially cast for free whenever you play a Bloodbraid Elf. So Bloodbraid Elf is a 4 mana 3/2 with haste that says when it enters the battlefield, reveal the top card of your library until you reveal a non-land card that costs less than Bloodbraid Elf. And you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So you could whiff and hit an Arbor Elf, but you gotta imagine Bloodbraid Elf into Stone Rain, blowing up your Inkmoth Nexus, swing for 3, pass. In this matchup, that can be a pretty big play. Now, besides our Bloodbraid Elf targets, we have our top end, which consists of Stormbreath Dragon, who is a 5 mana 4/4 flyer that has haste and also protection from white. And in a format like Modern, the protection from white is pretty relevant in quite a few matchups. And finishing out our top end, we have Inferno Titan, 6 mana 6/6 with fire breathing. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. So, up against Affinity, it'll probably blow up your Steel Overseer that still has Summoning Sickness and both of your Vault Scourges, or just the 3 most valuable toughness on your board, wherever that happens to be. And the last important card to talk about of the main board is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. One of her +1s allows you to reveal the top card of your library, and you may cast it this turn, but if you choose not to cast it, deal 2 damage to each opponent. Now, her other +1 adds 2 red mana to your mana pool, and you could use this to cast a Molten Rain, or even to help you cast an Inferno Titan. Now, her -3 is good removal, deals 4 damage to target creature, and if you ever get to -7, you get an emblem with, whenever you cast the spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to target creature or player. So the game is over if you get to Ultimate Chandra. Now, to quickly go through the sideboard, I think the best 2 cards against Affinity are Ancient Grudge and Shatterstorm, because they both just wreck artifacts. And actually, the board wipe effect from Anger of the Gods, or Bonfire of the Damned Miracle, is probably just as good as those 2 cards, if not better. There's also Trinisphere, which, as long as Trinisphere is untapped, each spell that would cost less than 3 mana to play costs 3 mana to play instead. Now, with my extremely low mana curve, and Ponza's ability to make 3 mana on turn 2, a well-timed Trinisphere could just shut me down entirely. And last card we've got is Beast Within. Destroys any target permanent and replaces it with a 3/3 instead. Well, I think that about wraps it up. So let's go ahead and jump into round 1 and see how this goes.
We play the
2,
canopy.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Interesting.
Out of the Reliquary?
Sure.
Sure.
And pass back.
Go ahead. I'm at 18.
I'll draw. For Arbor Elf Sega.
Yep. Instep. Yeah, if I have the opportunity to kill the turn 1 dork, I'm gonna take it. It pays off more often than not. I mean, I shouldn't be complaining. Equip.
Now I want to
Move to attacks?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on a 1, 1, 7. 13, 27. Pass turn.
4 mana up and 5.
So I actually kind of hate games of Magic that go like that, but it was a good example of why you should always hit the turn 1 mana dork. There's a chance they may be depending on it entirely to be able to play their hand.
I'll try it.
Me too.
Bottom.
Bottom. Go
Are
ahead.
you ready, kids? Aye, aye, Captain. Fetch shock.
Nice.
Force.
I dig the SpongeBob.
Sprawl naming red, Sega.
I can't Galvanic Blast or Sprawl. Wow, it's a bad draw. Vault Scourge, no pain. Go ahead. I show my hand to the camera here, and it looks like 2 lands and another Mox, so that's not good. I hope I have good top decks.
Yeah, Gavney. Tap 3 tracker, Sego.
Pretty good. Draw step. Alright, back in business.
Plating.
Here's my top deck. Move to combat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a 1, 1. 6. So you're at 14, I'm at 26. Well, there's a discrepancy in life totals. I think we missed that he fetched at the very beginning. So if you notice the life totals being off by 1 point, not to worry, I am aware. You're halfway there.
Use Jose special dice. Jose, channel me.
Living on a prayer.
Alright, let's spin this wheel.
I'm gonna
On the
get
stack.
Alex.
Cast.
Oh my god. Wow. Literally the best top deck. I guess I did top deck that cranial plating. So, what goes around comes around. That's insane, bro.
I hope so after I brought in 7 cards that destroy artifacts. And 6 of them.
I'm sorry, can I take that back?
No, you're on camera. Now go ahead and take it back.
You know what? I'm gonna own up to that mistake. Combat. Pink.
Yep.
You know, I'm glad he jokingly gave me a hard time there. This is a good friend of mine that I play with a lot, and I think I was too comfortable asking to take that back, so no takesies backsies.
Cast. And then get
Wow.
into it.
You spun that wheel and it paid off. That was awesome.
Tap. Trigger. Combat.
Oh man, 15. 1 to 15.
P and Q.
Makes 2 dudes.
2/1/1 fighters.
This game is like quickly becoming over. For a brief moment, this game was looking good, but I am so far behind at this point. And it feels that way a lot against Ponza. You're doing fine, and then one particular turn is just so explosive that it gets out of control. Single best? Go ahead. I shouldn't concede, but it's really, this is not looking good.
No blocks.
I felt really good after I top decked that plating.
I'll sack a clue. Activating P and Q. No, that doesn't. It's sacrificing a clue to Pia.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no! Actually, no. He still gets the trigger.
It's whenever you land.
Yeah, whenever you sacrifice an artifact.
Right.
Ah.
We didn't get that quite right. It's whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on Tireless Trekker. Usually you sacrifice a clue to its own ability, so you can draw, but sacrificing a clue is sacrificing a clue, even if you're sacrificing it to Pia and Kira Nalar's ability.
You see him trying to stack his deck, kick him a ball. He's used to it. His life.
Block, take 3. I'm at 12.
Tap 1, play birds. So you go.
Oh man, more flying blockers. Ancient Grudge followed by bursting out like that ended up being just a little too good. So hopefully I get there in game 3. I wouldn't wish that on you. It's cute.
I had furries all the lands. Yep.
Bottom. I'll start us off. Go ahead. Definitely a weird start, but Double Ornithopter does open me up to the Mox Opal top deck, in which case I could have 3 mana on turn 2. Wow, the top deck. That was the top deck.
I'm gonna Breeding Pool, not Temple.
Blue. Crane? No 3-drop. I feel it would have been a better use of my mana if I did have something like a Master of Ethereum, but there is a silver lining to every bad crane. See, in this case it's a Signal Pest, which is actually really strong on this board. Double Ornithopter, double Manland.
I'll fetch.
19.
Shock.
17.
Pass turn.
Interesting. Tap. Upkeep.
Draw step.
Draw step.
Abrade the opal.
So this is pretty interesting. I have a Spell Pierce in my hand that I would rather use on something like an Anger of the Gods, but if I let this Abrade resolve on my Mox Opal, then I won't have the blue source to cast my Spell Pierce whenever he does cast an Anger of the Gods down the line. So, I wasn't really sure what to do. Let me know in the comments if you think casting a Spell Pierce here was actually the correct move or not. Blink, activate, enter combat. 6.
Sure, go to 14. Sure.
Or 11. Sigo.
14.
2 mana still up.
It was a really tough choice whether or not to use the Spell Pierce.
Tap for 4.
Yep.
Chandra.
Pretty sweet.
Untapping.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
I will. It's gonna start at 4. I'll minus it. Put it at 1.
Minus deals 4 damage to target creature.
Pop the Signal Pest.
Seems fair. Yeah, Signal Pest is definitely the right choice. It's like when he chose Cranial Plating off the Ancient Grudge in the last game. In both scenarios, it's pretty much my whole game plan. So now that he's taken my game plan off the board, I feel stuck in the water, depending on my top decks. So, let's see what I drew. 3 mana. Whoa. Well, actually, that is not a bad top deck at all. 3 at face.
Yep, I'll take 3.
1, 2, 3. You're at 8. Go ahead. He has a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Current game plan: ride Master of Ethereum to victory.
We'll gain a life. And
Sure.
Sauce.
Tap on tap.
Pass?
No.
Oh, my bad.
No, Sigo.
Tap. Upkeep. Draw step.
My total currently is 8.
8 and 20. Glenda's Crane. 1, 2,
do you have to put the cards for the trigger?
4.
Resolve? I mean, like,
So when it comes to
Champion.
trigger, so this
My only card in hand.
standards,
Activate. Combat.
I really want to do this for you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the air.
Block here.
Yeah. Take 6.
Go to 2.
No, I think
Sigo.
this game no matter what. Not because I really not because I genuinely think it's a bad deck, but because
2, 3. Tap, untap. 4.
yeah, I didn't think design it.
What is that?
Shatterstorm, destroy all artifacts.
Hey, that's magic for you. Sometimes sideboard cards are just on top of your opponent's library. But this is one of the examples that makes Crane shine a little bit. The fact that it's not an artifact here is actually a huge plus. Sometimes that's a negative thing, like when it can't interact with Arcbound Ravager, but here it leaves me with lethal damage on board, so gotta hand it to the Crane once again.
Arbor Elf, Sigo.
Untap, upkeep, draw step.
You don't have
I want to drag it out. 2.
Yep.
Wow, dude, good games.
Yep. I misplayed.
After such a fast game 1, that ended up being a really great match. So, I'll see you guys next time for round 4. before I got in for a bajillion.